That's the most powerful card in the game. Okay, so we're gonna record another video. Okay, so I wanted to record a revisited video because I've been doing shedding tears and artificial lack of intelligence and whatnot. And I thought maybe I could stand to go back to a revisited topic that I have not gone through in a while. At the time of recording this video, I do not know how well that video was received, but there's a lot I can still talk about with regards to it. Yes, today I want to go over various random support cards that I made, custom obviously, in the Magic Set Editor program for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. There are several groups of these cards that I'm probably going to do videos on if things don't change in my life in the coming future relatively soon. But all the cards that I want to go over today are just kind of random support cards. I know I have an image of all the hand traps here, but I don't think any of these particular cards have any real relationship or synergy with any of them. I just thought it was cool artwork, and you know, full credit to the artist, whoever it was that actually originally made this piece of artwork. I just saved it because, you know, it looks cute. Ghost Nun is probably my favorite of the hand trap girls. As far as I know, she's like the least useful one, but you know, they can't all be Ash Blossom. I do remember Ghost Ogre being particularly relevant when I was more actively playing the game. The Link era seems to have moved away from Ghost Ogre being useful, but whatever. Before I get into any of these cards, let me just preface by saying I do not own the artworks for any of the cards I am about to show. Many of them, I believe, were ripped from the website known as Dan Boru, and I believe most of them were Card Fight Vanguard cards. So if you're like, I feel like that's familiar, that's probably why. As I said, none of these cards have a particularly unified through line, but I also don't really know if there are any monsters that I can really pair them up with. These are all monsters though, so if for some reason you would like to see spells and traps be discussed, this might not be the video for you. But also, I don't know if you can tell, but I think I downloaded all of the fonts to make the cards look more like actual Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It might not be completely perfect, but I tried my best to get the actual fonts so that things look correct now. Anyway, if the fact that this is a pendulum monster has not scared you away, this is a normal fire level 3 pendulum monster. It's a warrior, so it's searchable with Rhoda. 1700 attack, 200 defense, and a scale of 9. The monster effect doesn't exist because it's a normal monster, and it can be unexpected died out, I believe. It says, constantly faced with the insurmountable odds, this brave warrior never wavers. No challenge is too great for a determined hero. You know, standard normal monster flavor text. It doesn't really mean anything. The pendulum effect is the most important thing. If you control 2 or more normal monsters with different names, except Underdog Warrior, so you have to play like a kind of dedicated normal deck for this to really matter, or you have to play Metal Foes, which, I mean, I guess technically is that. As long as those monsters are not Underdog Warrior, you can add 1 continuous spell or trap from your deck to your hand. This is kind of potentially busted. I don't know if there are any continuous spells or traps that are meta right now, aside from Floodgates, that having this card would break. I do know the ban list over the last couple years has kind of shifted the positions of many of the infamous Floodgate cards around, but obviously, I mean, read the name. It's Underdog Warrior. It's meant to be a spiritual reference of sorts to Heart of the Underdog, which is the continuous spell trap that when you draw a normal monster for your normal draw, you can reveal it and then get more draws. And so the idea is the more normals you draw, the more you'll draw in general, so it'll thin your deck out. But the thing is, there's no real way to search for Underdog that I know of. Like I said in that last video a while back, I haven't played the game actively in a while, so it's possible that this effect kind of has been broken open by the development of the game past when I made this card, but I'm going to expect someone to drop a comment explaining that a little further beyond that. And then there's a condition: you cannot special summon effect monsters from your hand, deck, or graveyard during the turn you activate this effect. So I guess if you have effect monsters banished for some reason, you can special summon those, but as far as I understand it, special summoning from the banished pile is not as common. I mostly just wanted to show this card because I imagine there there is some strategy that is broken wide open by its existence. Disclaimer before I get into this guy, all I know is that the card that this one is built around and is meant to support is one of those weird cards that has a lot of like hyper-specific support and synergistic cards that work with it, and I believe this was me attempting to open that up a little bit more and make that set of monsters and cards more approachable for actual gameplay. Ocean's Master is a water level 3 effect monster, tuner fish type with 1500 attack and 1200 defense. Can Deep Sea Diva special summon this guy? I feel like maybe it can be. Anyway, it says this card's name becomes Ocean's Keeper while face up on the field or in the graveyard. Cannot be used as material for a special summon except for the special summon of a fish monster. Obviously, this is kind of trying to keep in line with the Ocean's Keeper, which I imagine was probably employed in a fish deck. I think in the anime, I may be misremembering it, but I also don't think I watched the particular anime that Ocean's Keeper was in. If this card is normal / special summon, you can discard one card. Special summon from your deck one effect monster that specifically lists the card Ocean's Keeper in its effect text, excluding Ocean's Master itself, ignoring its summoning conditions. Like I said, a lot of real hyper-specific stuff. I don't know what this enables. It's been so long since I made this card, but I guarantee there was probably some monster that could only be special summoned if Ocean's Keeper was on the field or something such. So I kind of wanted to go, yeah, we're going to take that in and we're not going to do that. We're going to get rid of that. A consistent theme with many of the cards that I made is that I tried to give them restrictions that would not necessarily bring them down in a competitive sense, but also prevent them from being used in decks that they shouldn't be used in. So obviously on top of the Ocean's Keeper, Ocean's Master kind of sphere, I also wanted to say, hey, you can only use this in fish decks. I don't think fish have really been meta outside of the Deep Sea Koalacanth deck, which was before my time, but nevertheless, I wanted to kind of head that off. Next up, we have the Regenerating Drakoghoul, which is a level 6 dark zombie pendulum effect monster with 2300 attack and 0 defense, which, as far as I can remember, is like a hallmark of zombies as a type, and it is a scale 7. I guarantee that was for a reason, I just do not remember. Monster effect first. This card gains 300 attack for each zombie pendulum monster card in the pendulum zones. So if you have 2 pendulum monster cards in your pendulum zones, it can be bumped up to at max 2900 attack, which is somewhat decent. It's obviously not over 3k, but that's a decent amount of attack. Once per turn. Oh right, this is the interesting part of the effect if I remember right. You can send one zombie pendulum monster face up from your extra deck to the graveyard, special summon one zombie pendulum monster from your graveyard with a different name from that card except for Regenerating Drakoghoul. If I do more Yu-Gi-Oh related videos in the future, this might come up, but I really wanted to see the face-up extra deck and the graveyard have more interplay. As I have said in the past, Master Rule 4 kind of kneecap pendulum archetypes in a way, because if it is special summoned from the extra deck, face-up or otherwise, it has to go to a linked zone or an extra monster zone. And I figured, well, zombies are a graveyard-based strategy, so if you made a zombie pendulum monster for the zombie archetype, as it were, you'd have to make it so that the pendulum monsters and the face-up extra deck become resources that interact with the graveyard. Hopefully I did a good job with that here. I don't know how broken this would be. This was more of a concept-based card, like how do you do zombie monsters if they are also pendulum monsters? I do not believe this card ever ended up supporting or being part of an archetype that I created myself, so this is just meant to be a piece of generic pendulum zombie support. And you know, that was a major problem that pendulum monsters had, and might still have, honestly, is that pendulums really only worked with other pendulums, and I kind of wanted to create pendulum monsters that benefited other archetypes and were generally more generic. To that point, let's read the pendulum effect. You can discard one card, it's rather standard cost for a zombie card. Add one zombie pendulum monster from your deck deck or face up from your extra deck to your hand except for another copy of itself. You can only use this effect of regenerating Drakoghoul once per turn. So it's kind of a monkey board, but I believe monkey board is legal in the TCG now. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but at least at the time of recording this video, I think it may be legal. But that's part of the problem with pendulums, right, is that you have to get to another pendulum monster in order to pendulum summon in the first place. In an instance where you're only using this card as a way to fill up your graveyard with zombies, maybe it's not a big deal, but obviously if you want to pendulum summon out zombie monsters, you're going to need another pendulum monster to do so, and obviously to keep on theme as a zombie pendulum monster, you would want to search another zombie pendulum. Last but not least, I have two Link monsters, which if I were to guess are probably going to be the worst ones from this batch. First up, I have a retrain of Magical Scientist. I made him a Link 2, and much like the original Magical Scientist, he is also a spellcaster with a dark attribute. And I believe the original Magical Scientist had 600 attack, so obviously that's what I made the attack. In order to summon this guy, it requires two monsters, including a fusion monster. I presume, if I'm remembering correctly, it basically meant normal summon anything and then activate instant fusion, and then you can go into this guy. And I believe Runic was released after I made this card by a substantial period of time. So just because I know Runic was particularly competitive, maybe this could be a broken card. If this card does not point to a monster, you can pay 1,000 life points. So basically the same thing as the original Magical Scientist, except it has to have an open link zone for obvious reasons. Special summon one level 6 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck to your zone this card points to, but it cannot be tributed or used as link material. Also, if it is an effect monster, you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with that name for the rest of this turn. This is treated as a fusion summon. You can only use this effect of Manic, Master of Fusion, once per turn. So basically I was trying to bring back the Magical Scientist effect, but basically you can't activate the effects of any effect monster that you summon, nor use it as link material, nor tribute it. I'll be honest, reading through it, I'm thinking it might not be that good, because you can't use the material for further link summons, nor can you tribute the thing, which was a staple condition of a lot of the older cards like Magical Scientist, but you can technically synchro and exceeds with that monster. You can also use it for ritual summons, so it's not totally useless, but I don't know, it feels rather stringent in its restrictions. It is interesting to note though that the monster summoned, if it is an effect monster, cannot activate effects, but any continuous effects will still go through. So if you summon an effect monster that is a floodgate, that floodgate effect still goes through. So maybe it does actually work according to plan. Yeah, you can basically summon out the last warrior from another planet with this effect, and it will not destroy any of the other monsters on the field because the effect will be negated even if it could for some reason activate, which it also cannot do due to the phrasing and conditions of this effect. But the neither player can special summon monsters effect is continuous, so I guess you could always summon out the last warrior. Actually, never mind. That was a level 7 monster, and the effect specifies level 6 or below, so that's probably why that effect was written that way. But I also don't know every single fusion monster, new or old, that has ever been released, so it might be decent. Again, if anyone still plays the game actively and can think of a way to break this card, let her rip in the comments. Tell me how it would work. And then this guy is going to be the last card that I go over in this recording session / video. Here we have Token Devour Dragon, a Link 4 Water Worm Link effect monster with 3,000 attack. Its material requirement is very specific, 4 tokens. And before I read over the effect, I'm pretty sure there are 2 cards that I was thinking about when I was thinking of the material requirement. The first and most obvious one would be Scapegoat. Basically, if you pop a Scapegoat and the monsters survive for some reason, and you have the room for all 4 tokens, you can summon Token Devour Devour dragon off of that singular scapegoat. But hypothetically, you could also synchro summon into Ultimate Bish Balkan. Obviously not in a extra monster zone, otherwise you won't be able to summon this guy, but I don't remember what this one does. If this card is Link summoned, you can pay 1,000 life points. Take control of all tokens your opponent controls until the end phase. So yeah, if you used Ultimate Bish Balkan, basically you make this guy and then you pay 1,000, take all of the tokens you just gave them, and then you can do whatever you want with those tokens. So yeah, in order for that to work, you would have to summon Bish Balkan to a main monster zone and this guy to the extra monster zone. Otherwise, the effect wouldn't be able to go through because you wouldn't have enough spaces. You can discard one card, add one token, spell/trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Token Devour Dragon once per turn. Yeah, this was one of those randomly specific support cards. Basically, there are a handful of random generic token support cards. I believe a lot of the token goblin monster characters show up in the artworks for those spell/traps, and I guess this was just my way of trying to support all of that. I don't exactly know how a blue crystal dragon really fits into that lore, but I'm sure Konami could find a way. Overall, I do not know how interesting those 5 cards were. I just realized, I haven't done a Yu-Gi-Oh related video in a while, and I did kind of set myself up for doing more of them, so if you found any of my card concept ideas interesting, let me know in the comments section and leave a like while you're at it. At the same time, if they're bad cards or too overly specific, let me know at the same time that thing that I just said. You guys take it easy. Obviously, if you watched my Godzilla DVD tagline tier list video, you can probably tell I just did that video, so go watch that one, please, if you're at all interested in Godzilla. And I do promise I have done kaiju archetype cards. Not many, because I don't think that archetype can be saved, but maybe check that out. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. All of you take it easy, and I will catch you on the flip side.